Hello, my friends. I am glad you are here. This is a calm and safe space for people in their 60s and 70s who want to feel more secure about money, health, and retirement. Today, we are going to talk about Social Security and about the real lives behind this big and confusing system. Before you claim Social Security, I want you to slow down and listen to 3 simple stories. These are not stories from books or theory from a professor. These are stories that feel very close to what you and your friends might be going through right now. 3 ordinary people, all in their late 60s and 70s, made 3 very different choices about when to claim Social Security. One claimed as early as possible because she was tired and afraid that the help might disappear. One claimed at his full retirement age simply because everyone around him said that is what you are supposed to do. One waited until age 70 with a clear plan and a lot of patience because she was more afraid of running short in her 80s than of waiting in her 60s. None of them are foolish. None of them are lazy. They simply made decisions with the information and emotions they had at the time. By the end of this video, I do not want you to copy any one of them. I want you to recognize pieces of yourself in at least one of these stories and to see clearly what you might want to do differently. I want you to feel calmer and more informed before you make your own decision about Social Security. I want you to feel that you are not alone, that your worries are normal, and that you still have choices. After these 3 stories, I will give you 7 simple questions to ask yourself before you claim, so you can see your own life more clearly. If you want more calm and clear information about retirement and life after 60, please click like on this video and subscribe to this channel. It helps you find your way back here when you need guidance again and makes it more likely that other seniors will see this video too. If you are ready, let us talk about the first person in our story. Her name is Barbara, and her choice was driven by fear and exhaustion. Barbara is 72 years old now. When she first started thinking seriously about Social Security, she was 61. She worked in a small office where the lights were a little too bright and the chairs were never quite comfortable. Her back hurt every single morning, and her knees ached when she walked up the stairs. She was proud that she could still work, but she felt more tired at the end of each week. Bills seemed to come faster than her paychecks. Her friends at work kept telling her the same thing again and again. Barbara, take Social Security as soon as you can. We do not know what the government will change next. It is better to get something now than to get nothing later. They were not trying to scare her. They were scared too. On the television, she saw people argue about budgets and deficits. She heard cold phrases about the future of Social Security that sounded distant on the news, but inside her heart they felt like quiet threats. Each time a commentator mentioned possible changes, she imagined a door slowly closing. She did not run the numbers in detail. She did not talk to a financial planner. She did not sit down with a calculator and compare what she would get at 62, at her full retirement age, and at 70. She just felt tired, worried, and alone with this decision. She was afraid that if she waited, the benefit might be cut, or she might get sick, or something terrible might happen and she would never see the money she had paid in for so many years. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, when her back hurt more than usual and her patience with work felt very thin, she decided that she could not carry the anxiety any longer. At 62 years old, she went down to the office, signed the papers, and claimed her benefit. In that moment, she felt a warm wave of relief. It felt like she had finally grabbed a small lifeboat in a big and uncertain ocean. For the first time in a long time, she felt that something steady was coming into her bank account no matter what happened at work. She went home that night, made herself a simple dinner, and told herself that she had done the safe and responsible thing. For the first few years, Barbara felt mostly fine about her decision. Her Social Security checks covered most of her basic needs. She cut a few expenses here and there. She stopped buying little extras at the grocery store and started cooking more at home. She told herself that this was good for her health anyway. She paid her rent, kept the lights on, and even saved a tiny bit for emergencies. When her children visited, she smiled and said that she was doing okay. But time has a quiet way of testing every financial choice we make. Prices went up little by little. Her rent went up when the landlord said that taxes and maintenance costs were higher. The price of bread and milk and vegetables went up. Her medications got more expensive, especially after her doctor changed one of her prescriptions. A neighbor needed help for a few months, and Barbara gave a small amount of money because she could not ignore the need in front of her. The check that once felt like enough began to feel like a blanket that no longer reached her feet. She learned how to stretch food, how to wait for sales, and how to make do without small pleasures that used to bring her comfort. Sometimes she stood in the pharmacy with her hand on her wallet and felt a knot in her stomach while she waited to hear the total. Sometimes she looked at her bank balance and told herself that everything was still fine, but late at night she wondered how many more years she could handle the slow squeeze. She began to notice that friends who had waited longer before claiming seemed a little less stressed about money. Their checks were larger each month. They complained about prices too, but they did not seem to worry quite as much about running out before the end of the month. On quiet afternoons, Barbara would sit by the window and look at her statement. She would think to herself, "What if I had waited just a little longer? Would my check be bigger? Would I feel less nervous with every trip to the pharmacy? Would I buy fresh fruit more often without counting every dollar?" The truth is that Barbara cannot go back and change her decision now. She did what she thought was safest at the time. She made a choice from fear and exhaustion, not from clear information and calm reflection. Her story is not here to make you feel guilty if you have already claimed early. It is here to remind you that fear is a very expensive advisor, and that when you decide from fear, you may trade many years of higher income for one day of relief. Barbara's path is one path. Now let us look at a different path, the path of a man named Frank, who thought he was doing everything by the book. Frank is 68. All his life he followed the rules. He paid into the system, worked steady jobs, and believed that if he did his part, the system would take care of him later. He was not a person who enjoyed reading about finance or comparing detailed strategies. He believed in honesty, hard work, and simple answers. When he was approaching his full retirement age, everyone around him said the same thing. "Frank, just file when you hit your full age. That is what people do. No need to overthink it." Friends at church, neighbors on the porch, and even a cousin at a family barbecue repeated this idea again and again. Frank did what he had always done. He listened to the general rule and trusted it. He did not look closely at how working a bit longer would affect his benefit. He did not think deeply about how his decision would affect his wife if she outlived him. He did not ask how Social Security would be taxed together with his other income. He did not ask anyone to run different scenarios. He was not reckless or irresponsible. He was just on autopilot, and autopilot can be dangerous when the landscape is changing and the road is complicated. At first, everything seemed fine for Frank. His check was bigger than Barbara's S, and he felt proud that he had waited until what everyone called the right time. The money covered his basic expenses, and he liked the feeling of finally receiving something back from a system he had paid into for decades. After a few months, he decided to keep working part-time at a job he enjoyed. He liked staying busy and talking to people. He told himself that the extra income would give him more freedom to travel, to help his grandchildren, and to fix things around the house. What he did not fully understand was how that part-time income, combined with his Social Security, would affect his taxes and other costs. More of his benefit was taxed than he expected. Some of his health-related costs ended up higher than he had imagined. The details were confusing, and he often felt frustrated when reading letters and statements. When his wife began to have health problems, he realized that he had never really understood how survivor benefits worked and how his claiming age affected the amount she might receive if she outlived him. He sat at the kitchen table with a stack of papers and felt a heavy mix of worry and regret. None of this meant that his life was ruined. Frank did not make a dramatic or catastrophic mistake. He made the kind of quiet mistake that many people make. He thought that doing what everyone else does is the same as doing what is best for him and his family. If you feel more like Frank, the kind of person who follows the rules, trusts the system, and does not want to complicate things, you are not alone. Many good and honest people prefer simple guidance. But before you claim, it is worth asking a few extra questions. Ask how working part-time or full-time after you claim might affect your benefit and your taxes. Ask what will happen to your spouse if you pass away first. Ask how your Social Security will interact with your savings, any pension and other income you expect. Sometimes the most dangerous phrase in retirement planning is that is what everyone else does. Frank's path is another path. It is not a disaster, but it is also not perfectly tailored to his life. Now let us meet Nancy, the woman who chose a slower and more deliberate path. Nancy is 70 now. When she turned 62, she received the same letters, offers, and friendly suggestions that Barbara did. People around her said that she had earned her benefit and should take it as soon as possible. They said that you never know what might happen in the future, so it is safer to gather what you can today. But Nancy had been raised in a family that liked to look a little further down the road. Her parents were not rich, but they were thoughtful. They taught her to ask what happens later. So instead of filing right away, Nancy sat down at her kitchen table with a notebook and a pen. She wrote down simple questions. How much would I get if I claim at 62? How much at my full retirement age? How much if I wait until 70? She wrote 3 simple numbers on the page in front of her. Then she asked another question. What if I live to 85? What if I live to 90? What if I live to 92? She thought about her parents and grandparents and how long they had lived. She thought about the fact that more people today are living longer, even with health challenges. As she looked at the numbers, she saw that the difference between claiming early and waiting was not just a few dollars. It was the difference between always worrying about the next bill in her 80s and possibly having a little breathing room. The idea of having a larger, more reliable check when she was older felt comforting, but the idea of waiting almost 8 years felt scary in its own way. Waiting was not easy for Nancy. For several years, she lived mostly on her modest savings and a small part-time job at a local library. She liked the work because it was quiet and meaningful. She helped people find books, print forms, and enjoy a calm place to sit. She drove her old car a little longer instead of replacing it. She said no to some trips that looked fun but were not essential. She learned how to cook simple and cheap meals that were still good for her health. Some nights, when the house was quiet, she worried. She asked herself, what if I do not live long enough to enjoy this larger benefit I am waiting for? What if something happens and I never get to use the extra money? Those thoughts are natural, and she did not push them away. But she always returned to one thought. If I do live a long life, I do not want to spend my 80s counting every dollar with fear. Now, at 70, her Social Security check is significantly larger than it would have been at 62. It does not make her rich, and it does not solve every problem, but it gives her more room to breathe. She can buy fresh fruit without as much stress. She can cover her basic bills more easily. She can help a grandchild here and there. Waiting was the right choice for her, because she had a plan for how to live until her benefit grew, and because her health and family situation allowed it. Her path is not the right one for everyone, just as Barbara's path and Frank's path are not the right ones for everyone. Each of them made choices based on their emotions, their beliefs, and the information they had at the time. The question for you is not which one should I copy. The better question is which parts of these stories feel like me, and what do I need to think about before I choose my own path? To help you with that, let us move to 7 simple questions you can ask yourself before you claim Social Security. Here are 7 questions to sit with before you claim Social Security. The first question is, how is my health really? Am I planning based on fear of dying early, or on the real possibility that I might live a long time? The second question is, do I clearly understand how much I would receive at 62, at my full retirement age, and at 70 in actual monthly amounts that I can write down on paper? The third question is, how will my decision affect my spouse or partner, especially if they outlive me? The fourth question is, will I keep working, even part-time? And how will that income interact with my Social Security and with any taxes I might owe? The fifth question is, what other income do I have, such as savings, pension, or investments, and how will Social Security fit into the whole picture, not just this year, but 10 or 20 years from now? The sixth question is, am I deciding calmly with information, or in a moment of panic, pressure, or exhaustion? The seventh question is, if I look back at this decision 10 years from now, what will I wish I had thought about more carefully? You do not have to answer all of these questions tonight. You do not have to make a perfect plan in one day, but you do deserve to ask them and to give yourself enough time and kindness to answer honestly. Whether you feel more like Barbara, or like Frank, or like Nancy, remember this: you are not late, you are not behind, you are simply standing at a crossroads that millions of people face every year. The difference is that you are taking a moment to think, to learn, and to choose with intention. If this video helped you feel a little calmer and a little more prepared, I invite you again to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Here we talk about money, health, and peace of mind in a way that respects your age, your experience, and your intelligence. Your support helps this calm space exist in a very noisy world. And now I want to ask you for one more thing that can help both you and other viewers. In the comments, tell me which story felt closest to your life. Do you feel more like Barbara, like Frank, or like Nancy? Tell me how old you were when you claimed Social Security, or how old you were thinking about claiming. Tell me what you still worry about or what you wish you had known earlier. Your comment might give comfort to someone who feels alone with this decision and is quietly reading what others have been through. Your words might become part of the wisdom that helps another person choose more calmly. Thank you for watching and for being here. You have already done many hard things in your life. You can handle this decision too, and you do not have to do it alone.